right, welcome to the Record Store Podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And on the Record Store Podcast, the theme of the record store has a double meaning. In reality, a record store is a place of discovery and a safe space where creativity thrives as people open themselves up to new ideas through community. Everybody has their own place like a record store, a place they find solace in. I'll dig deep with my guests into what place is so special for them, how it's molded their lives, and we'll see where the conversation goes. Whether you're a musician, a DJ, a comedian, a writer, a designer, whatever you are, we all have our own record store. And for this debut episode of the Record Store Podcast, I'm joined by a longtime friend and Detroit hip-hop artist Paradigm, who recently dropped his new album, Period, via Mellow Music Group, after taking over a decade-long break from releasing music. So after a quick break, we'll get into my interview with Paradigm. All right, we're back. And joining me on the debut episode of the Record Store Podcast is Detroit hip-hop artist and longtime good friend of mine, Paradigm. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing, bro? It's good to see you, man. I'm liking the beard too, bro. I like the beard thing you got going on.
Oh yeah, man. I had to embrace the grays that were coming in.
Yeah, the wolf grays, baby. It's a good thing to have. It shows wisdom, man.
Oh yeah. It's a good look, when getting older. But I'm still looking like I'm younger than I am too. So I'm trying to. It's a good balance.
It's okay to be old, but you don't want to go old right away. You might still want to fight it. You don't fight it a little bit.
Yeah, you don't want to look like a baseball mitt.
No. Take it from a baseball mitt, bro. You don't want to look like a baseball mitt.
Right. So me and Paradigm, we go way back.
Yeah.
And I think the first time, we kind of connected online a little bit with the message boards back in the day, like the Detroit rap message boards and stuff.
Those were a hoot, bro.
Yeah, that's where I met you and Hex and so many other people. It was crazy on those message boards. And
yeah, we got to talk about that. There's the greatest message board story is the one time when the dude was running his mouth at Hex.
Oh yeah.
And Hex found out who the dude was and showed up at his office and gave him his card. He's like, you make business cards? And the guy's like, yeah. He's like this one? And homeboy's like, oh shit. He's like, yeah, man, this isn't just internet, bro. Like, you can't just say anything you want and not get away with it. So
right, man. It was crazy back then, man. And then I think the first time I ever met you face to face, I know it was in the shelter, and I think it was one of those shows like you'd have your own shows, and we wouldn't get into that, like how great your shows were, but you'd also do shows with other bands. At times it would be like new metal and metalcore bands.
Yeah, and that was a weird time. Yeah, they put me on a lot of those shows.
I think first time I met you in person was at one of those at the shelter, and we just chopped it up a little bit, and then then soon after I was doing web design for you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, those were the days. And one of the things I want to get into that kind of goes with that is sort of the branding and the merch of Paradigm. You always had great merch, and definitely your logo, which Cancer the Rhino did, right?
Yeah, Cancer did that.
It's really just a great logo to have, and talk about the importance of the branding of Paradigm, although for your whole career.
You got to give a shout out to ICP because I watched ICP killing the merch game. I knew ICP t-shirts before I even knew who ICP was.
Right.
But seeing the things that they did, and I was like, there's a whole business. My music is obviously the forefront and everything, but I'm like, there's a whole side business here, and people want to rock shirts and want to rock hats, and then me, Hex, and Ron, Marky P, we got sweatsuits, the exclusive Beats at Will stuff for just us, and But then I started to really have fun with it, and like, the actual dime with my head on the dime, and it said like in
Yeah.
dime we trust. We had all kinds of crazy, and then the shirts just had broke. Um, but I started to really like, I was making good dough off that stuff too, and then it was a blast because people are walking around promoting you, not even realizing it.
Yeah.
So it was great in all different fashions of it. But yeah, that like Cancer, I was like, Mark Kemp did my first album cover, and before we even had that, I was like, I need a logo, and Cancer was like, chit, 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 chit. And it's been the same thing ever since. And actually, we went before I did the record that I just put out. I was like, Cancer, I want you to like redo it, kind of upgrade it, do a different version of it, and it's super dope. And I sent it to like Earn and pass it around, and I was like, man, just stick with the original. It's not broke. Don't try to fix it. So I didn't. But yeah, man, Cancer's a guy. That's a pretty special thing.
Yeah, like back in the days when it comes like definitely in the 90s, especially for, artists around Detroit, like the t-shirt game was like really important. Like
Yeah.
you would go around, you'd see the ICP shirts, you'd see the House of Crazy shirts, you'd see the Esham shirts,
Yeah.
and it would be like, and it would give that little sort of, oh, what is that? Who is that?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. I
Yeah.
keep on seeing it, and
Yeah.
like that was something that I feel like Detroit was really good at doing.
Yeah, for sure. Then, and like Mo Dirty did his "You Don't Belong in Detroit" shirts. They're still dope. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just think Detroit's got a good edge on, a good handle on that. And like I said again, ICP kind of, I was like, damn, like these dudes are, and then I heard numbers like what they would do on merch alone at shows. And shout out to my boy Joe Lambie that would kind of handle all that and set up the table and everything. And we do good numbers on that stuff, man. It was great. Still do. Like, did a merch drop not too long ago, and it's been 800 years, and it was great. So
Right. No,
it's
you
amazing.
you got that iconic Detroit logo, man, with the paradigm, that
Yeah, man, it's cool. Thank you. I
that we all
appreciate
love, um and then even even when it came to your projects, you know what was sort of, the importance of the packaging with that.
I just same thing that era. I watched another name that I'll bring up is Double D. Double D was doing hip hop promotions in like the mid '90s. I mean, still does it, but like he'd get all the stuff in from the record labels, and they'd have stickers, preview snippet CDs, uh, so posters, stickers, T-shirts, hats, and it's just like, well, I want all that stuff too. If I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it right. So, and then yeah, when it came to the albums, same thing. I wanted, I did merch dedicated to that album or something specific for that project. Um, yeah, man, it was always the whole delivery of everything was always really important to me. Still is. Like, if I'm doing it, I want posters and I want stickers and I want all that stuff. So very important to me.
When, kind of going throughout your career, you had Paragraphs, went to Vices, went to 11 Steps Down. Um, During that sort of time in your life, what what was sort of, what did you learn about like putting out a record, and what did you feel like you did well in just like, not so much the music part, but more or less like the marketing and the packaging and whatnot.
Yeah, because I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you I'm on no one's top 5 list except maybe Charlie Beans. Just a shout out to Charlie Beans. I'm not. It's not. I'm not the greatest MC in the world. I think I make really good music. I think that I always have. I think I make good projects and I make very listenable music. You know what I mean? But aside from that, live shows were always like paramount to me.
Yeah.
And I think I mean, I think I drove a lot of fans and listeners from live shows because people would bring people just off the strength of this is a great place to go, drink our faces off and watch somebody get in a fight at some point. And the shows are fun. And then it's people would leave and be like, man, I'm getting that record. And that would, I mean, I'd always see, another thing at the merch tables, always made sure that we had discs,
Yeah.
and those would always kill too. And then some people, and then the days of CDs, people'd steal your CD, it'd get scratched, it'd get tossed out the window or whatever. So, you know, people be like, oh man, I got to get a new copy, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like live shows were super important. The merch game was important. Obviously, the website and everything was important. My first website before he even came around, I had the little video game, just like
Yeah.
making things interesting. You know, as a brand, as myself as a brand, I just try to make it as fun and interesting as I could all the time. So
And for the music nerd in me, also, you also put out 4 volumes of Stale Brew. Talk about
yeah,
those discs.
I just had so much music and a lot of demos that were same thing that were like fun. Like they weren't mastered or mixed properly ever. And or like live performances too on the Stale Brews or like guest performances. And I was like, man, people want to hear this stuff and they might not, you know, listen to Moonshine Bandits or whatever, but they listen to me and then they wouldn't hear that song if I didn't put it on here. Or like the live versions of stuff are hilarious because they're sloppy, but they're fun to listen to, you know? Like
Yeah.
you'd cover Once Upon a Time in the Projects or, you know, Just a Friend or Big Papa or something. That was part, you know, people loved that. You know, I'd always close with some kind of silly cover because at that point everybody's feeling themselves. So
Right. And it gave people a little taste of those live shows that we all love. People that go to your shows, we always love your shows. So on those discs, we definitely got a little
yeah,
taste.
yeah. And it was also, I mean, I'm not gonna lie too, at that point, like I'm just flat out living off music. And it didn't hurt that, you know, if I did a record every 2 years that, you know, halfway through it, I'd be like, here's a bunch of other stuff that you might not have. And I'd, you know, make some dough too. So
Yeah, yeah.
kind of win-win. So
Kind of getting into the theme of my podcast. With the record store. For this podcast has like a double meaning.
yeah,
When you go to a record store, it's a good record store has always been a time of like community, creativity, meeting people, digging through records and finding inspiration. But like everybody kind of has their own place where that is. It can
yeah.
be a record store, but what is that for you?
For sure the studio, like, and you can't see it now, but I'm in it. But like my home studio more than anything, just because I can shut everything out as much as I can. It's a lot different now with kids and than it used to be. But just to come down here and like tinker with things, man, and write new things or write things that I wouldn't normally or try to play or make music I wouldn't normally make and be outside of the box. Like when we were first all coming up and like nobody had home studios really, and you had to pay, you know, $30 an hour, which at this point is laughable, but back in the day, I mean, this is a lot of money. Um, and so like when you got in the studio, you had to, you know, or you should have everything pretty much ready to go. Like we went in there, like I'd always get frustrated when MCs would come in and like start to write when they've had the beat for a while. I'm like, man, we're paying for this. Like you could have wrote it home, bro. Like, but like the like having this domain that's mine and it's my little area of the house and it's where I can create and this is my record store. I totally agree with you. The community and like the actual record store, there's nothing like it. But to answer your question, this is my record store. But I mean I used to love like as far as vinyl goes, I collect music to this day. I always have been a music
Yeah.
collector. Shout out to Big Earn again, like all day long, like check this joint out, check this joint out, check this. And not always, you know, could be hip hop, could be like singer songwriters stuff. Chief
Yeah.
does that too, send me songs out of nowhere. Um, so I collect music, but when it came to vinyl, you know, my cousin Marky P was like, he was the first DJ that I, you know, I mean, obviously he's family, but he was the first DJ that I knew, you know, that had tables. So when I would go find random vinyl, I'd be getting it to give to him. You know what I mean? Like, dig through this, like check out some stuff that's on here. Um, but yeah, just being in harmony houses and you know music land and all that stuff, buying tapes and CDs back in the days to when I got a little bit older and would go to Melodies and Memories or you know the real record stores. Like it's just a whole different world, man. I love to just flip through crates. It's a blast.
How when you're in the studio, what how do you find your own inspiration? How do you kind of you know keep the juices flowing, the creative juices flowing?
It's weird, man. It's always different for me. Like on this previous record, uh like the song Annie, for example, Chains sent me some beats, and I wasn't looking to write a song about my daughter. You know, I mean, I want to, but it wasn't like the first thing in my head. But when that popped on, I'm like, oh my god, man! It just was like the beat made me write it. Same thing with September 22nd that Charlie Beans made. He sent it to me. I'm like, started to think about what I was going through with drinking and stuff like that. And so sometimes just like a beat or music will inspire me, and then sometimes I just literally will come down here and like do my best to try to play some new piano chords or hear something that's dope and you know flip a sample and see where it takes me. But a lot of I mean like those stale brews, like 99.9% of the things that I tinker around with nobody ever hears but me. But that's you know that's part of that's art. You know what I mean? That's part
Yeah.
of doing what you do. I'm always. I mean, you ask my wife, ask my friends, ask my kids. There's music on in my house from the time I wake up till the time I go to sleep. So music is just life all day long. So it reflects so many things that, you know, it just hits you in so many different ways. And maybe it doesn't, maybe it's just playing in the background, but I just need to have it. And so, like the creative process for me is just, it's just like it's part of breathing. You know what I mean?
What do you have to have in the studio to like get comfortable? Like whether it's your chair or
I mean, these
something to
days,
eat or anything?
not really, man. These days, like it's just, it's so different now. Like I said, with my kids and my family, you know, like coming down here is it. You know what I mean? It's just if I when I get the time to be down here and just create. Back in the day, I'd have all kinds of answers. I'd be like, well, I need this kind of beer, a shot of this kind of whiskey, this type of weed or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like now it's the music's perfect, man. It's all I need. I just need this space and my equipment set up the way that it is, and it's like, you know, you get in a flow of where everything's connected the way you want it, and you know, if I want to pull up the MPC, it's a button, and if I want to play on the keys, it's a button, and that's it. You know what I mean? Just having. I'm an organized cat, and I want things clean, which is kind of nerdy, but if my studio's set up the way that it's supposed to be and everything's in its place, I can kind of clear my head and just make music. So that's really it. It's just time more than anything.
Going, kind of going back to your beginnings. Okay, that first Stale Brew had a bunch of tracks that were like stuff before Paragraphs.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I ever seen you perform live was, I think it was like '96. You were opening for Kid Rock in Mount Clemens
Oh
at,
wow. Okay.
at what now is the Emerald Theater, but it was called
Yeah.
like JD's Club
Yeah.
2001,
Wow.
whatever.
Good memory
And
there, guy.
yeah, and I was like, and this is the thing, I was like, at that time, I was like, man, yo, these dudes kind of suck. And I was like,
Bro, you know who else thought that is the dudes. Like it was terrible. I mean, it's all about getting your chops. And you know what?
right,
You know, obviously Kid Rock and I go back super far. And man, but I will tell you one of the things, uh, that's a hardworking guy.
yeah,
And when it comes to his live shows and the effort that he put into them, I always tell this story. We were in the flats in what's that? That's Cleveland, right? Yeah.
yeah,
And ICP was playing next door, and this was like his come up. Like this is 90, probably 6, 7 around that same time.
yeah,
And there was like no joke 5 people in the building. There was, and he did this big thing where he came out of a casket with a fur coat on and all this
yeah.
smoke behind him, and me and Mark are looking at each other like, bro, you're not going to do that though, are you, tonight? Because there's nobody here. And he was like, fuck, I'm not. So it was like, and like Hex would always say, like 2 or 2 million, man. If there's 2 people here, rock those 2 people. And if there's 2 million, rock those 2 million. Doesn't matter. Like those people get paid, you know, they're in here. So um, I had a lot to learn at that time when you first saw that show, obviously. But, you know, didn't know breath control.
Right.
I didn't know, you know, about putting a set list together. Like, let's just rock these 4 joints, guy. These are our shit right here. And people love it. And then walked away like, no, man, I couldn't breathe. Like I got work to do, you know?
There was one thing about that performance that confused me later on when I kind of got reacquainted with you. Like during the opening for that Kid Rock show, I didn't know if you were Paradigm or if the group was Paradigm.
Yeah, that was a thing for a while. You know what I mean? Like But it's just like anything. It's like Hootie and the Blowfish. Like, people don't know till they know. So point is that soon after you figured it out, and that's all that I
Yeah,
care
but
about.
the next time I saw you perform was in '98 when Hush put on that benefit for Bugs, original member of D12 at the Wired Frog, and I saw you perform there, and I'm like, holy crap, he's good now. I was like, holy shit.
You know what else too? In those, like I look back to those days, and I started to like. This sounds like an arrogant thing, but I started to feel myself like I was like I know what I'm doing, and I got more comfortable, and I was more wild on stage. Like physically, like when I first went out there, I was just trying to rap and
Yeah.
scream, and I didn't know about how monitors worked. Like if I couldn't hear myself, I just yelled louder. You know what I mean? I wasn't like turn my monitors up or whatever. Um, but I think I started to figure out the technical aspects of a live show. Um, and then, like just relaxing and being myself and people were digging what I was doing and that made it easier to perform. So yeah, that was probably the difference there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I was like, oh, this dude, oh, he's good now and stuff. I'm like, and then like, shortly after I would eventually buy paragraphs on cassette, and I still have that cassette.
Nice.
And then I would just meet up. That's when I was starting to really get into like outside of like ICP and Esham shows beforehand, like that Bugs tribute show was like one of the first shows that I went to, like a Detroit hip hop
Yeah.
show,
Yeah.
and I started kind of going out more and more. And so I was meeting more people, but I was meeting more people that like were into you also. So like I always knew about your fandom, and like I've seen your growth all these years,
Yeah.
and so let's talk about the live shows, because like even like within my little like friend group that I have that are into like wrestling and Detroit hip hop and ICP and stuff like that. Like my friends Pete and Chris and all that. Like like one of our favorite things are going to Paradigm shows. And let what like first off, like what was always your goal with doing when it came to the live show?
It was to put on a show. Like uh and I say that like that sounds like, well, duh, but I'd work really hard on intros. Like, if it was around Christmas time, I'd have like some kind of cool Grinch intro, like he's a mean one. You know what I mean? Like, um, and then shout out to my man Scotty Cav. Like, I know for a fact that when it came to like the Detroit scene, nobody else had a lighting guy. Like, homeboy rolled with me and was like, you know, paid off beer and t-shirts, and if we made like really banked, then throw him a few $100 or whatever. But it was just on the love, man. He knew the show. And then think about it too, like, bro, we weren't emailing songs all over the place. You know what I mean? Emailing a song would take you like 18 hours on dial-up. They'd be like, meet me at 11
Right.
Mile and whatever, and I'll throw you a burned CD or a tape of the show, go listen to it, and you can hear the intros. But like putting on an intro, having lights, having an actual show where it would, maybe I didn't finish a whole song, maybe it would go into something else, or there'd be a piece of a cover in it, and then not to mention, I was, whenever humanly possible, I played with a live band.
Yeah.
And I think that makes such a difference, man, on so many levels, because you're not tied to the DAT tape or the instant replay or whatever. If something goes wrong or something's going really right, you can just keep it going for a minute. And then like to have musicianship, like
Yeah.
cats that could actually play, and like, sometimes a band would come out like when 50 Cent's first record came out, like If I Can't Do It was my jam. And like, the band would like
Yeah.
they'd play that first, or play like, a dope Eminem instrumental, whatever. And crowds, I mean, they were like freaking out, like, this is so dope, because it wasn't like you said about the new rock thing. Like, I was getting radio playing 89X, the alternative station, which was weird.
Yeah.
But it was like, and I don't know if it's the white rapper thing or the Kid Rock connection, but people would always try to put me in these rock shows. But then we'd make it work. But when we went and played hip hop shows, I know cats were sometimes rolling their eyes like, man, I want to watch some kind of Limp Bizkit remake shit, you know, but it wasn't at all. You know, it
Right.
was definitely not the Roots level, but that was the aim, you know, to feel like hip hop and be hip hop. And you know, Mark's still there on the tables, dropping break beats, and the band's playing over break beats, and there's scratch solos, and you know, we made them fun. And then you know, the whole thing with my song Guinness, and you know, I always every time I talk about Proof, you know, I talk Proof would always bring me up a Guinness, or we do like little shot breaks, you know, like it was a part. I wanted people to feel like number one, there's stuff to talk about, like that was funny or that was crazy or I can't believe they did that, and that they had as much fun as we were having because I know we were having fun.
Yeah, you had a nice balance with live band where it didn't sound like rock music,
No,
but like it added to the, the studio version of the songs,
yeah, yeah, and then they'd flip like you know like do little you know I'd be like in the second verse this time let's just do drums and bass like you know and you just have some fun with it and like and at times turn around and be like tell the drummer like break for a second and like you know rock it's a whole different thing and if you can kind of command that stage as an MC as well the show goes from here to here for sure.
And like I mentioned before, like, I did a couple of your websites, did flyers for you and everything. And, you always took care of me and everything. And like you were saying, like back then you had a team,
Oh
you
yeah.
weren't a huge act, but you had a team, what, how were you able to, put together a team and like keep that team together for so long?
Man, when I look back now, I mean, I don't think I really there's so many things that I don't realize I had that I
Yeah.
had. You know what I mean? Because that team was just my crew. You know what I mean? And they were my friends and we all wanted the same thing. And while it was like looked at like Paradigm and his team, it was who I was going to be with anyway. So it's like, you know, whether it's, it was always me and Mark or me, Mark, Hex, Mikey, Lambie, my band, like the same cats all the time, Scotty, like, and it's like we all like who's got the banner? Like we'd always it was always a joke because the banner'd always get lost at the end of every night because everybody's all sideways and where's the Paradigm banner? But like always somebody's always making sure that everything got put away, that everything got taken care of, that the money got figured out right. And it was just like that was just family, man. I'm really lucky. But then at the same point, when it came to, cats like you, Mark Kempf, these people that were doing graphics and that were, I mean, I respect when people help me out and I respect when people do the right kind of work that I'm asking for. And,
Mm.
I think a lot of times people just take stuff like that for granted. And, I always did my best. I made a lot of mistakes, but I always did my best to like appreciate people, pay them as much as I could when I could. And, a lot of times I didn't and couldn't, and people still rolled with it because they saw a vision. And, it's just funny because if I could redo it, I would do it a lot differently. But it was awesome, man.
When, kind of going back to, like, okay, when it comes to the live shows aspects, what are some of your favorite memories of doing live shows?
Man, just the Blind Pig in general. Like I loved and loved. I was actually, Dean. Dean's my guy. Me and Dean were in Ann Arbor the other night for a business dinner, and he was like, "Yeah, there's the Blind Pig," and man, that place just was like home to me.
Yeah.
And the sound was decent most of the time. They took really good care. The first time we played the Blind Pig, I wanted to play there, and they were like, "Well, tell you what, we'll give you a Wednesday night, and let's see how you do." And on that Wednesday night, it was like in January, it was snowy out, and they're like, "Dude, you're fucked. Nobody's coming here." And we packed it, and they said they did more bar money on that Wednesday night than they had done like the previous 2 Saturdays.
Yeah.
And they're like, anytime you want to come here, man, it's yours. So that became like, I mean, I don't even know how, I can't even count how many Blind Pigs there were, but that place, which was cool because it was like a college town too. So like the Detroit Cats had all come there. I mean, I remember one night Eminem's in there, Kid Rock's in there,
Yeah.
Royce is in there. you know what I mean? And again, you talk about taking things for granted. I look back at those times like, oh, that's dope, you know. And now I look back, I'm like, what the fuck, bro? Like, were you even paying attention to what was going on? You know,
Right, right.
I was, but it was just living. It was living in that moment, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Blind Pig for sure, man, and just any show for the most part. There were some really terrible ones that were still fun, you know, that were technical messes and things broke or, you know,
I
we all
mean,
drank too much, whatever, but they were always fun.
yeah. I mean, they must love you with the amount of like fights that would break out, and they would let you come back.
I can't tell you how many times we had to run out, change shirts, and come back into clothes. Like, so somebody's like, "Yeah, the guy with the red shirt threw something," you know, like, go put a black shirt on, Freddie, before you get your money. Yeah, there was always some kind of shenanigans, man. And again, thank God that we all made it out of there. You know, that whole era that we made it out alive. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
crazy.
No, no. The thing is, and you're like another person. Like I can definitely talk about is that, you know, you're someone who definitely got like respect in Detroit hip hop. You know, and you're a white guy. You're a white dude. I'm a white dude too, and we definitely got our respect. We earned our respect within this scene. For me, I always like that's something that I really cherish and you know put a lot of importance in because I knew, you know, coming into this hip hop scene, like I'm a guest in this scene. You know, this is like a black art form, and I'm a guest, so I can't like I'm gonna respect it and not disturb it. You know, kind of speak about like, you know, how you always felt like, you know, in the hip hop scene in Detroit.
Very similar to what you just said, man. Like I uh I was very lucky and still I am very lucky to rub elbows with the people that I do and the people that I have. And to have a mutual respect from, you know, like there's no I'm not saying this to blow smoke or to be whatever, but my favorite MCs are Elzai, Marv One, Guilty Simpson,
Mm-hmm.
Eminem, you know, Denine Porter, like all these MCs that I really respect are all cats that I literally have, you know, been with, hung out with in the studio, made music with. And I always pictured myself, like you said, like I'm visiting here, man. I'm not trying to, you know, I know that, and I think that's where I may not ever be considered a humble cat by any means, but when it comes to the art form itself, I'm extremely humble, and I don't consider myself anything special. I make the music that I make, and hip hop's what I've always loved and what I've related to, what I listen to, what the way that I could express myself best. Um, but I never ever. That's one thing that I never took for granted is you know that circle, that alumni that I was able to be around, man. It's pretty legendary, bro. But yeah, nothing but respect and like kind of awe, you know, like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
uh like when Jenny Risher and Hex did that the Deciphered book, and to be included in that and be like, you know, somebody that they're gonna put into the DIA and you know consider part of history. Pardon my dog, but to be a part of not just Detroit history, not just music history, but to be in a in like a nationally, you know, recognized art museum, like
Right.
what? You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, damn, that's I wow, you know. But yeah, definitely. Just I feel like I'm on the sidelines here, man. I'm not trying to change or do anything different. I respect and love this culture so much, and I don't know where I'd be without it.
You know, kind of going back with, you know, thinking back to like, you know, our friendship or anything. What are some of the things that stick out about, like when we got together, or you know, things that we sort of
I
were.
always I always remember being at Northern Lights with you when Danny was first popping,
Yeah,
and I think you're the first person that really put me on to Danny.
yeah.
And like I don't know if it, you know, there's times where like just as an MC, you've got this. There's so many rappers, right? There's like 8 billion fucking rappers. You hear new rappers every day. I mean, and anything new, it kind of took me a minute. You know what I mean? It would take the right person to get me to listen to something, basically. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I remember you putting me on to Danny and really digging the shit out of Danny's music and his delivery and him as a person. Um, but I remember it being at Northern Lights and you being like, oh, you know, you had flyers or something. And I was like, probably was like, I'm not listening to another rapper.
Right,
You were
right.
like, no, you're like, no, bro, trust. Yeah. But I just know anytime, man, I see you, you're just a good, humble, happy guy. Never seen you in a shitty mood or anything. Like, can't tell you how many times I've been in a club or a bar and been like, K Frizzle.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, man, just like, you know, you're just a good positive dude, man. Always did so much for the city and for the music and put so much effort into it, and everybody, especially me, appreciates it a lot, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Means a lot.
Yeah, man.
Going now let's talk about, you know, what's going on these days. You know, you put out a new album, period. And this is after like a decade long break
Yeah,
from
yeah. Like
rapping.
12 years, I think it was.
12 years. And like and still that whole 12 years, me and my friends are like, I wish Paradigm would just do a show. Like, I don't care if he puts out music, let's do a show.
Yeah,
Like,
man.
but kind of talk about why you took that break, you know, and what were you doing during that break?
I basically got to the point where like uh music was I was starting to spin my wheels. And I feel like, you know, I could have kept putting out records, but it's like my focus has just changed as a man, I think. Like, you know, went through a bunch of personal stuff. Um, my wife and I got together and, you know, I just was focusing on like basically I wanted to build a family and grow the fuck up a little bit. And I knew that being in bars, which that's what's tough, man, is that like so much of this industry and so much of your success depends on being out at night and being in clubs and being at bars and like, you know, that's where everybody meets up and everybody hangs and where you see everybody. And it was just like, I think I just was like, man, I need a little break from that. And I didn't think I was going to do anything ever again. Like I was fine with it. Like I
Yeah.
was like, I'm going to focus on a couple other little business ventures I got going on. And, you know, then I had my first son and then I had my daughter and I was like, bro, I got, you know, I never gave a shit about health insurance. I didn't life insurance was just some shit that was in commercials. I didn't know what that was all about, you
Hmm.
know, like I probably didn't even think I was going to live to be my age. But yeah, man, I just was like I wanted to focus on, you know, building a family and having things and not, you know, getting cars repoed, you know, I went through all kinds of shit with money, you know, like we said, I'd sell t-shirts, I do shows and pay the rent, pay whoever, put some money on my car and do it again, you know? And then it was like, well, I got to keep doing shows to survive. Like
Yeah.
it's going to kill me. And not to mention the fact that, you know, a lot of people don't think about this, but when you're a local artist, um, which I shouldn't have been, that's my fault, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But I was primarily in Michigan all the time and I'd do these shows and it was good money. But then people don't want to see you every month. That's not, you know,
Yeah.
you become
Yeah.
a bar band or whatever. And I didn't
Yeah.
want to do that. And I thought I built a pretty good legacy with my records and that it was just what it was. And I was good. But it goes back to your first question of my record store. And I never, ever, 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 ever did or will stop making music, writing. If a, you know, there could be like a random like Genesis song that comes on the radio, and if the beat's going long enough and I'm feeling, I can't help but to kind of freestyle in the car. It's just what I do. So I just never stopped making music, and it just got to the point. And I was doing some production for other people, writing for other people. So music's always the tie-in for me. But I
Yeah.
just figured like, yeah, I'll just be a songwriter and a producer, and I'll keep my hands on the business, but I'm not going to be out there rapping. And lo and behold, 12 years later, I changed my mind a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, something you said about like, you know, you're like, I'm gonna have to keep on doing shows to do this. Like that reminds me of something I Method Man was just on the Kid Mero and Carmelo Anthony's podcast, and he was
Yeah.
talking about how he got into like doing full-time acting. And he was saying that he was going, for music, he was going on tour overseas because the US had dried up. He had gone
Yeah.
overseas where he could get paid, like, and he's going over there 4 or 5 times a year. And he realized, he's like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't
No.
want to come here ever again. So when he got back
It
to the
wears on
States,
you, man.
yeah.
It
So when he
wears
got back
on
to,
you. It really
so
does.
yeah, when he got back to the States, he moved to LA. He slept on his, like, this is Meth Man. He slept on his agent's couch for a while and was like, yo, we got to do something different because I don't want to tour anymore. And then that's where
Yeah.
you start seeing him now. And he was like, he's on Power, like whatever and all that.
Yeah.
But he was like, I can't do this anymore to pay my bills. I got to do
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
different.
It's true, man. It wears on you for sure. I get it.
And then I feel like these days, like, a lot of things have changed in that 12 years to where,
Tons.
like, you can make music and put it out without having to do as much of the going out and rigmarole, all that stuff.
That's
Like,
the only reason that this worked. No
yeah,
joke. Because I mean, that was a family discussion. My wife and I even talked about it, and we were like, "Look," she's like, "We got shit going on here," and like, so this is something where you're planning on, hopping on in a van and going and playing shows on the East Coast, West Coast, down South, whatever. Like, we got to really discuss this. And I was like, I can't. I don't want to. Like, if things present themselves, like, going to Tucson and doing the mellow music session, they're different
yeah,
story. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Not to mention the fact that I brought her with me and we made a little getaway out of it. But I will not say that I won't ever do a live show, because it's just, that's something that's, in my blood, and it's,
yeah,
I want to at this point, but I could never go back to that, like, club bar van,
yeah,
like, not in my, I want to be here with my kids and my wife. I want to be around I love it here. I'm super lucky. And, what if an opportunity presents itself and it's the right thing, and there's discussions about stuff, but it would have to be something really, really right and done really, really well for it to work.
yeah. And I think a lot of, like, the older acts in hip hop are like kind of understanding that, where they're just going to do spot dates or whatever. They're not going to be road dogs all the time. Like, even
Well,
on,
I'll tell you right now, me and shout out to Guilty Simpson. Guilty and I just shot a video a couple weeks ago, and we shot it at like 10 in the morning on like a Monday. And it's because of the fact we both were like, even same with studio sessions. Like, when I do go and cut at like Silent Ride or whatever, I get those morning things. I don't want to be out at, like, book a session at midnight and go till 4 in the morning. I can't do it.
right.
But
Let's have
Guilty's the same
brunch
way.
meetings.
Yeah. But Guilty's the same way. He's like, bro, if we, let's do any way we can do it in the morning. I'm like, yeah, bro. Like, I was kind of hoping you'd say that. But same thing, Paulo Brown. Like, Paulo and I are really close friends, and when we did get together, and first time I played him this record, but anytime we've done anything, same thing. Like, what are you doing tomorrow at like 10:30? Like, business hours.
Yeah.
You know,
And even when he goes overseas for tours, they're like just a couple weeks,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
comes back
Because
and
he's got it down to his system now. He knows
yeah,
what works. He wants to go see the right people, and he does, and get his money and rock the shows, get home and be with his family. It's,
yeah. And even I was on his Twitch show, Shaggy Two Dope from ICP was saying, like, he's about to do a short Canadian tour and then some stuff like on the East Coast or West Coast or whatever. But he does these short tours recently. But then he also said, he's like, I'm taking the whole summer off because I want to do stuff with my family.
There you go. It's funny how it works now, man. Back in the day, be like, I don't care. I'll do a show anywhere, anytime, any place. Now I'm like, I won't do a show anywhere, anytime, any place.
Right. And the thing is like, there are, even though there's some people that can, make good money touring, and with the merch and everything that goes by with it, there's still a lot of people who who are successful with their music but don't tour that much.
Right.
And I feel like that even though making money off of music is very hard these days, like
Yeah.
the ones that can do that, they don't have to tour that much, or they barely tour, or they do little spot dates and stuff now. No one's
Yeah.
forcing uh a big hip hop tour anymore,
No.
because it's even though you're seeing like the older acts kind of doing these big shows now again and being able to make money. They're not like being like road dogs, really.
No.
Like Wu Tang did it kind of, but like
Yeah.
it
Well,
still has to be a big thing.
there's those big acts that can get on a bus and spend their summer going from pavilion to pavilion, and they're getting good money. And it's just now that there's that middle spot that's kind of gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where like they put people on a tour that's kind of newer and take them out, and now it's just like you're either up there or you're down here, and it's not.
yeah.
You're
Just like
either
think of all the banging like hip hop tours that used to come through like
oh
St.
yeah,
Andrews back in the '90s. And you're like, like,
oh yeah, it's
like
way different now.
it's way different. Like,
Yeah.
what finally like talk about the new record and like what finally got you in the mind state to like to put together a period.
I kind of back to what I was saying, man. I just was always making music, and I just started to like take it a little bit more seriously, like where I actually had songs, and I swear I had no need to put them out. Here's what I would always do: I would make music, I'd send it to my man Big Earn. He'd be like, "This is dope," or "cool," or whatever, and that would really be it. And I'd listen to it in my car, and it'd be me and Earn, and that was really it. Um, and then like um but still I'd have that need to want to make music. And Charlie Beans, who is the man, we kind of connected, and I was like, send me some beats, like I don't remember how we reconnected, but it was over something. And then he sent me a couple and I wrote to him, and then those were bangers. And it was just like it kind of started to go like this, where I was like, I got these 4 really good ones, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 good ones. And then literally on a snowy day last year, whatever, I went to Apollo's house, and we were sitting there, and I was like, here, I'll play it, the stuff I got. And he wouldn't even let me skip, because there was a couple where I was like, you don't want to hear this one, and usually those were the ones he ended up liking the most, which is kind of funny.
Always.
But yeah, but he was like, bro, what are you going to do with this? And I was like, probably nothing. And he was like, do you mind if I play it for mellow music? And I was like, do I mind? No, I don't mind. Are you fucking kidding me? Like I would, that would be great. And literally Mike from Mellow called me that very next day and was like, dude, this record's really special. Um, and I'm also at a point in my life now where all these years we ran around with our middle fingers up, like, I don't give a fuck. Like I gave way more of a fuck about my music. And let me word this right. I always give a fuck about my music, but I gave more fuck about what people thought about my music then.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I don't. Now I'll make music because I feel it or I'm thinking it at that time. There's a couple songs on this record that I would have never put out before, out of like those ones I told you playing Apollo. Like I don't want to hear this.
Yeah.
But those are the ones that people are like, dude, that shit's special. That shit's different. But now I don't feel the need that I have to prove anything to anybody, or I was a top notch MC in my alumni class. Like I said, definitely not one of the top 3, 4, or 5 by far, but I held my own. But now it's like I established myself as an MC. I'm in my late 40s. I'm not trying to go to the hip hop shop and battle
Right, right.
people. You know what I mean? Like, so it's all about making music, and to make music because I want to and because I like it. It always translates, man. Like if you go back to my really early stuff, when I was goofing off, like Guinness was a goof off, and
Yeah.
same old was a goof, and Broke was a goof, kind of. You know what I mean? Those were like the three most popular songs on my first record.
Right.
It's all the ones where I was, or then like the deeper ones, like, you know, like No More, like songs about like friends dying and people that died and shit like that. Like, those are the songs that I was never thinking people would get into, but I made them because they were important to me. And those were always the ones that people picked up on the most. And the ones where I was like, oh, I'm killing these bars, bro. Like, you know, like they're like, yeah, it's cool. Like, but this one is the joint, you know? So this album is more songs than me trying to out rap anybody.
Yeah, and like for the longest time, there were, the sort of thing was that, hip hop is like a young dude's game, young person's game, and but like hip hop's been around for a while, and you're seeing like these older, these acts that have gotten older, things changed in their lives, and they're making the best music ever. My biggest example is Royce the 5'9", and like, talk about like just sort of being older now, putting out this record in comparison to like being younger in the trench of like that early 2000s, like spotlight on Detroit where everybody
Yeah.
was kind of looking for their rap dreams and stuff like that.
Yeah. It was a different kind of excitement then, obviously. A lot more pressure on things. Because it was a competitive scene too. You know, I mean, all respectful. You know, I don't have any enemies in this city, zero that I know of. But like it was very, you know, I was trying to make, you know, we're putting out CDs with 21 songs on it, and it's like they all got to be bangers. And what's this? You know, when you play it, like check this one out. And like, what do you think about this one? You know, and it was so focused on what everybody else was going to think and the way everybody else would perceive it. And I mean, it still worked. I mean, I still was making good music, obviously, but
Yeah.
the difference now is that, like I said before, I'm not concerned with it. And age has a ton to do with it, and what's happened to me in that time with age that's had so much to do with it. I'd way rather write a song about my wife or my daughter or things that I'm going through, you know what I mean? And like have it be a song and me talking about, I was always talking about my life, but then I'll go back now and like, and put on like Vices. And I was like, bro, do you do you need another song about being super drunk? Like, you haven't done that enough, my guy. Like,
Right.
um, but you know, it's funny. It's just maturity, man, all over the place. Like that was my maturity then. I was having a good old time and being an idiot. And it was real life and it was a persona mixed together. It was it was all these things. But now it's just me being me and not trying to, you know, put on any shit for anybody, you know, except for just have music that people want to listen to.
Right. And like what you kind of said about like, back in the day in those early 2000s, you know, there was this thing about a lot of people were, worried about what other people thought. And while like may think you made good music anyways, and there's a lot of people that made good music anyways, there was still that thing where like, oh, if I don't put my homie on this thing, they're gonna be mad or blah blah blah.
And you had to have features, you know what I mean? Like, well, shit, what features you got? You know what I mean? Or
Or yeah, or the biggest thing, always was like, with with Eminem, there would be people that say he didn't bring up enough people from Detroit, blah blah blah, when he never had he didn't have to, whatever he did, he does what he does. You do, you don't have any obligations when it comes to something like that. But I felt like there was like a lot in the air. There's a lot of obligation amongst people to do things, and I think that held a lot of shit back.
I think it did too. And it was just like, I mean, just like anything, man, there's a lot of politics involved, and everybody's trying to please everybody or make sure that they got the right connection. You don't want to leave somebody out and then have them get all fucking sour about it or whatever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, it was a time, and it was, you know, when it, especially at that time, and for a lot of people now, still, it's all you got. So it's like, this music is what I do, you know, and um, especially back then, being like, man, whatever it takes, I'll do it, you know. whatever the right move is. You know, like I remember so many times, I still laugh about it now. Like be making a record, like, well, we got to do a radio song. That was a very classic thing to say in the studio. Like, yeah, you got a lot of underground bangers, but you need that radio hit. Dog, I never had a radio hit. I tried. I like on every record, there's one that you're like, yeah, this is the one that he thought was the radio hit, huh? And it's fucking garbage. Like on 11 Steps Down, that song Hypno and Henny, bro, I hate that song. And I was just, we all were like, this is gonna be the fucking radio hit, man.
It's gonna be played in clubs.
Yeah, nobody's gonna play your shit, Freddie. Don't even get it fucking twisted. Like it was not happening. But it was like, you know, you try to do things. Gotta have this like gotta have like one like love song and then one couple club bangers and that underground feel. Like there was always this like you had to have these certain things. Like, oh, you don't have one with a girl singing a chorus, or you don't have one with, you know, like it was all these little like these boxes you had to check to make sure that you.
And then in hindsight, now we're like, yo, that was so stupid.
That's what I'm saying, man. Everything that was like anything that you tried to do that wasn't just trying to make good music was a fucking mistake. You know, it was just like you're trying the wrong things. Just make good music. You're not going to make Jaquan get tipsy off of trying to make Jaquan get tipsy. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It either is there or it's not.
Then I feel like, you know, at a certain point, you know, everybody kind of got free of all of that. And when it got easier to like put out your own music online and stuff like that, people were just like, I'm just going to do what I want, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of times that came, even if sometimes it didn't get the reach that their previous records got, it was, you know, better music actually.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like the mixtapes, like I still, like I got like a, you know, playlists on my Apple Music that are all like structured out for what part of me. I got my workout playlist, my chillin' playlist, my hip hop one, my smooth hip hop one, whatever. But like in my really good hip hop playlist, it's got thousands of songs on it. So many of those are like mixtape joints. You know what I mean? Like Fat Killer Squeeze Easy. I still love that shit. So like, there's things that were out there that were like not even made to be album songs, but people were just, you know, when people just made shit to make it is when magic happens.
Oh yeah. And there's a lot of that from Detroit, and people still don't like know those exist, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that. You know, one of the biggest struggles as someone who's like documented Detroit hip hop for so long is that the original reason why I did like the J Dilla discography and started branching off to other, you know, Detroit hip hop was because at a certain point at the end of the 90s, early 2000s, like even the internet was just like talking about, you know, Eminem, Jack White, Kid Rock, you know, like that's it, you know? And I was like, all right, there's other shit from Detroit, you know, that people can talk, you know, that should, you know, that they should hear, you know? And at times I still feel like there's a little bit of that still exists where
there always will be.
Yeah. Know? Like it's a weird thing where it'll be like people will like listen to stuff that like an artist that J Dilla produced, but at the same time they won't listen to the other stuff that artist produced. And it's like really weird. It'll be like, oh, okay, they'll listen to the Guilty Simpson stuff that J Dilla produced, but not the Guilty Simpson stuff that Madlib produced, but not all the other stuff, you know?
Right.
It's like a weird thing that people do, you know, that was always kind of bugged me throughout these years, you know?
Yeah. It's because, look, man, there's people like you and I, and like so many people that we know that music is really important. I'll go down rabbit holes. If I hear an artist that I like, I purposely go and listen to the next, you know, 4 or 5 that I can from them. And if it's garbage, then I probably give up. But if a lot of times it's like, damn, this is fresh. Like I dig this. Like, and like I said, first thing I'll do is send it to Earn and say, you know what I mean? Like I'm a music nerd and you're a music nerd. There, other people, it's just not the majority of people in the world. They like what they like, you know what I mean? And they're not trying to find anything new, and it's just not, people aren't wired that way. So some people are wired like us, and it just the majority of people, and that's the problem. Is it's just not the problem. It's just the reality.
And I understand like the casual listener, but there's also people who kind of act like they're experts, but
Oh,
won't
well, of
go
course.
past like
Yeah.
certain things. And I'm like, all right, you're like, chill out, man.
Yeah. No, I get
All
it,
right.
man.
To kind of close off things, I always like asking this question too is, what's something that you've learned throughout your life and career that it doesn't matter what, avenue of artistry or industry that they're in, that they could sort of put into like a piece of advice that they could apply to their own life?
I think it's just to you got to be your own CEO at all times. You know what I mean? Your life is a business. And actually this comes from a book that I read, believe it or not. I read never thought you'd hear Paradigm talk about a book he read, but actually it was a book
Oh,
on tape. So it's a book I listened to.
okay. Yeah.
But this dude was saying how like, look, man, like your life, you are the CEO, you're the CEO of your life and you're the best boss. Like nobody's going to make a better decision for you than you. If you think about it like that, because you might be like, oh man, I don't want to do this right now. But if you're your boss and you're like, look, man, that shit's got to be done, you get it done. Um, and I think like there's a lot of things, like I said earlier, that I wish I would have done differently. I don't wish I'm the type of person I don't wish that I did things differently because I wouldn't change the way things are for fucking anything right now. I'm the
Mhm.
luckiest motherfucker alive. My family is my shit, and I'm fucking thrilled. Um, but I do look back at things as an artist where I'm like, man, I wish I would have done that differently, and I wish I would have known to step back and think about things with a clearer mind and a business mind for myself, um, but I try to do that now with everything, and it's like it just works out for me so much better to just be in control of. You can't control other people, can't control what they're going to think, what they're going to do, what they're going to listen to. You just give you the best you that you can at all times, and it's not going to fucking work all the time, but then you got no regrets, nothing to look back on. There's nothing on this record at all, on this new record, where I'm like later on going to be like, fuck. Like I don't want if like Vices or 11 Steps Down came on the shuffle upstairs in the main, in the main room where my music's playing all the time, and I want my kids listening to that shit. You know what I mean? Uh, but it's like, that was me. That was who I was being at the time, and that was me at the time. And but now I can look at it and be like, look, man, this shit does not go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. And like I have that comment on the last song on this record, "Make My Way," where I'm like, look, man, it's uh Howard Stern said this. This is pretty cool. If you're in media, so if you're in something like we are right now, where you record yourself, whether
Yeah.
you're an author or a painter, whatever, once you give it to the world, you can't take it back. It's there for fucking ever. And like, um, there's a picture like on Google of me with two pistols that JD took one time, and I got one to my head and one to the camera. Fucking cool. That was awesome. It was a great idea. But my line in the song is like, it's brutal when you Google dad and he pops up with pistols. Like, like I don't want my kids being like, oh, let's see what dad is, and be like, oh, he's a pill popping alcoholic who totes guns. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
didn't really think about that. But, I'm glad I didn't at the time. At the same point, fuck it. I was young and I was just being Paradigm. It is what it is. But, if I just look at things differently now, and I'm not doing anything. I'm not like secretly being somebody else. Like that record is me. That record is really who I am. I'm still the same cat, and I still get the same kind of angry and the same kind of happy and everything in between. But it's just like this is me, and I'm not ashamed of it. And fuck it.
Definitely. Definitely. It's been good talking with you, bro.
You too, man.
When where can people go online to get more information about you and the new album? Period.
Um, Shit, man, it's available on Mellow Music Group, so mellowmusicgroup.com. But I'm on all the streaming services that there are, Apple Music, Spotify, Bandcamp, fucking probably MySpace. I don't know if that shit still exists. It's on Napster. I know it's on Napster. Um, yeah, it's anywhere where you can get music, man. I just go listen to it, man. If you dig hip hop and everybody says like this is the realest shit, like this is the realest shit, man. Like it's my realest shit. So it's music, you know. I mean, it's like there's so many phenomenal MCs that I can listen to their song one time and be blown away by their lyricism, but I don't want to fucking play that again in my car. But I can play Jay-Z Song Cry any day of the week and never fucking turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
So I see this record more as that. You know what I mean? It's more music. And yeah, I try to throw some bars in there and dust my backpack and my chew stick off and go for it. But yeah, man, it's just me being me, man. It's just music. And it's the real shit. So I hope people like it.
Hell yeah. It's been great talking with you, man.
You too, man. You too, man. You look, I like the Def Leppard shirt. That's a good touch.
Oh yeah. Favorite band of all time.
That's great. You know what my favorite joke is? Shit. Well, it's like what's got nine arms and rocks?
Or it's 9 arms and sucks.
Oh yeah, okay. I think that's what it is.
That's the one that.
Oh god, that's terrible, man.
Yeah.